Albion Online is a free-to-play, full-loop PvP MMORPG created by Sandbox Interactive. This game released on July 17, 2017, and from what I can tell, the game had an extremely rough launch. But Albion has since recovered after the initial launch headaches and has grown into a great game. As with all of my Is It Worth Playing videos, we're going to do a short about and then cover pros, cons, as well as gray area points. Now, like I did say, guys, Albion is a full-loop PvP MMORPG with a classless system, with abilities and passes of your character being determined by the weapon and armor pieces that you have equipped. The game is completely sandbox in nature as well, and after the initial tutorial, which does have some quests to do to help you get started and learn about the game and some of the basics, you're just dropped off in a town of your choice and essentially set free to do as you please. The game does not have any traditional questing or leveling, so the power of your character is going to be determined by the gear that you're wearing and your character's proficiency with that gear. The more you use certain gear pieces, your effectiveness with them will increase, giving you some extra power and a sense of long-term progression. The extra power that you gain is grinded up through grinding fame, which is essentially this game's version of experience and is gained in a wide variety of ways. And you do need to level up certain weapons and armor pieces to be able to use higher tiered versions of those pieces. The game has a fully player-driven economy, with all the equipment and items being made by other players. The game also has guilds and a type of housing known as islands, but they serve a more functional purpose rather than a cosmetic one and allow you to build certain crafting tables and other buildings on that island. You could also even have guild houses and hideouts serving as a base of operation for your guild. The game has an extremely wide variety of PvP content, from 5v5 arena to faction-based PvP with big Zerg v Zerg fights to capture outposts, 1v1 PvPvE game mode known as Corrupted Dungeons, a similar type of game mode that's 5v5 known as Hellgates, a ranked type PvP that happens at certain times known as the Crystal League, Roads of Avalon PvP, which is an open world PvPvE environment instead of it being instance. There's also guild v guild fights and more. The game also does have some solid PvE content with hardcore expeditions and dungeons that you can spawn known as Avalonian dungeons, but the game is more PvP focused. The game's world is broken into a wide variety of biomes, and within those biomes are zones with different tiers and colors. The tier of the zone refers to the level and difficulty of the mobs present in the zone. As you gain more fame and level up certain passives, you'll be able to more easily take on those higher level mobs. In addition, the color of the zones refers to the PvP rules of the zone. Blue and yellow zones are non-full loot PvP, where if you die, you simply get downed, while red and black zones are where full loot PvP is enabled. In addition, red, blue, and yellow zones do require you to flag up to attack enemy players, and you will lose reputation for killing non-flagged players, which can be re-earned by grinding PvE mobs, kind of similar to Karma in BDO. In the black zones, however, everyone is flagged automatically for PvP, and no rep can be lost. With games like this, the more risk you put yourself at, the higher the reward, so typically your red and black zones are going to be where the best loot is. In terms of the payment model, Albion does have a premium membership that gives some extra perks and bonuses, which I will show here on the screen. In addition, you can also buy cosmetics in their microtransaction shop, but there is no lack of skins to be purchased with in-game silver through the in-game auction house. Now, while silver is the in-game currency that is generated through player interactions, dropped by mobs, and used to do all the trading in Albion, you can also buy gold from the microtransaction store. Now, the gold can be used to buy certain character customizations that, they're like essentially a microtransaction type of character customization, or you can exchange the gold for the in-game silver, which, like I said, is used to do all of the in-game player-driven stuff. Now, while some people may see this as an issue of, spending silver, spending gold to get silver, which then allow you to buy high-tier equipment, remember that this is a full loot game. So the second you die in a red or black zone, all that gear is now lost forever. And since the probability of you never dying in this game is extremely close to zero, I personally do not see that being too much of an issue. Now, guys, with the about out of the way, we are going to get into the good, the gray, and the bad. And this game does have a lot of good, with the first thing I want to talk about being enjoyable progression. With the way that the game's progress is with the Destiny board, there is just so many different things that you can work on and grind up, different weapons, crafting professions, refining armor pieces, etc. There is a lot of stuff that you can work on, so it gives a lot of long-term progression in the game. But I found that the pacing of the progression is actually really, really solid, and you feel like you gain a lot of power in Albion pretty quickly, and there isn't a lot of time between like the second you start the game and when you could actually start doing the content that you want. So the progression of the game is paced really, really well. I also found the tutorial to actually be very good. You know, at the end of the day, this is a sandbox game, and it can be kind of difficult when you leave the tutorial to just be dropped off somewhere and be like, oh god, what do I do now? But I will say that the tutorial really did feel like it gave me the basics of the game, and I felt like I had a, you know, once I kind of picked the direction that I wanted to go, I had a rough idea of kind of, you know, what I was doing and where I needed to go. Obviously, there was still plenty to learn, but I do feel that overall, the tutorial was a very solid start to the game. One of the things that I also do like is that the world feels very dynamic with the new mob scaling that they've added. So the longer a mob stays alive in the world, the stronger it becomes, and the more fame or experience it is worth. And I think that's a super cool feature. So, you know, so if there's a particular zone where, you know, no one goes for a while, all the mobs will get super, super strong, be worth a lot of fame, and then end up being really good to grind. You know, I think it's super, super cool. It's a really nice feature, and it makes coming across an empowered mob like something cool, where it's like, oh man, we gotta kill this. And the thing is, if they level up enough, they're actually very tough to kill. It's not like they're pushovers. You can very easily die to these empowered mobs. The next pro that I have is that there are people everywhere. This feels like an MMO. I have yet to go somewhere and like not really run into people. Like, there are people everywhere you go in this game. The cities feel like cities. It feels like there's just like a billion people in the towns, and you truly do feel like you are playing a massively multiplayer game when you do play Albion. One of the other things I do like about Albion is that it always feels like there's something to do. There is just so much content. Albion has a lot of unique content with the corrupted dungeons, the hell gates, and there's just so many different things you can do in the game. You can log in and craft. You can log in and do corrupted dungeons. You can grind the PvE dungeons if you want to. You can go do faction combat. You can go do guild combat. You can queue for arenas. You could go farm. You could go gank in black zones. Like, there's just so many different things in Albion that you can do, and because there's no chores or things that you need to maintain, you can literally just log in every day and go, what do I feel like doing today, and then go and doing that. You know, you could grind up weapons. There's just so many different things, and I do like the create your own like fun kind of play style with the, you know, with the sandbox. And again, I love that I don't have an obligation to do anything. I can just log in and do whatever I want. This game also has one of the best base game auction house systems I have ever seen in a game. Now, the way that the auction houses kind of work, the marketplaces, is that they are town specific. So for example, the Martlock auction house is not connected to the Bridgewatch auction house. They are separate per town. But in the towns, it is a auction house for the town. It's not like a guild trader system like Crowfall or ESO. It is a central auction house, but for that town. And it works. The amount of information that you can get off of it is super, super good. Like, you can see charts of averages. You can do buy orders, sell orders, just instantly sell things, instantly buy things. You can also use I'm going to go into my next point, the loadout system, to just buy your complete build of gear right off the auction house, so that if you go die in a red or black zone and lose all your stuff, you just come back to town, you load the loadout into the auction house, and instantaneously buy all of your gear. And so the downtime in between fights, if you do die, is extremely short. It just, the UI for the auction house is very, very good, and it's one of the best I've seen for a base game. And speaking of which, like I said, that loadout system is also amazing. You can create and store a variety of builds on your characters, so you can just make a lot of different builds, save them, buy them straight from the marketplace after you die. You can then store them in your bank, and then if you want to, you can go to the bank and just hit equip and equip it straight from the bank. They just make it really easy to actually manage your inventory in the game. Also, the banks are, we want to say those are also town specific. So like, at least what I'm doing right now, I have one town that's like my base of operations, but then there's also another town that I'm in that I do a lot of my crafting. So I have all my crafting stuff over in that town. So, you know, I don't really need it in the other town because I don't craft there. And so it's kind of good that you can do different things in different cities. And like I said, with the way that they have the, you know, they can do different bank tabs and stuff as well. Just the inventory management in the game overall feels really great. They have a sort button too, which is super, super nice on both the bank and the inventory. They have a button that stacks everything. You can split stacks. Like, inventory management is also a really, really good point, and kind of, again, plays in with that loadout system that I was discussing. Speaking of which, talking about builds, Buildcraft in this game is off the charts. With the classless systems as well, builds can be changed really easily. So if you're trying a, you know, a mage type of build one day, and the next day you go, I want to be a berserker, you can go equip a melee build and you're good to go. But the way that I like that builds work in this game is that your specific gear pieces determine the abilities and passives that you can choose from. So for example, if, you know, a cleric helm is going to have a different set of passives and a different set of actives than a mercenary helm. And so you can basically choose the helm, choose an active, choose a passive, choose a chest piece, an active, a passive, your boots, an active, a passive, and then for your weapon, you gain 3 abilities, and then you can get a choice per row, which is super cool. So you're able to choose the abilities from the weapon and then a passive from the weapon. So you're able, and then there's also consumables with food. There's consumables with a like potions or poisons. There's also a cape that you can get to get another passive ability. There is just so much Buildcraft, and if you've watched my channel at all, you know I'm a huge, giant fan of Buildcraft, and that was one of like the first things I spent so much time doing in Albion before I even, like, I literally just started playing the game, like looked at the Destiny board and was just like, oh man, the endless possibilities, you know? And so I really, really do love the Buildcraft in the game. Another thing that is good with Albion is that I do find it to be fun with groups and or solo. You can pretty much kind of do different things if you're grouped or solo, you know. If I have some people that I'm on playing with, you know, a lot of times I'll go do Roads of Avalon with them, go farm the, you know, the mobs out there, go kill things, go kill people, make some money doing that. And then if I log in and they're not on, I do some corrupted dungeons. Maybe I do some crafting a bit, you know. There's just, you can do a wide variety of things, and I know this game in the past struggled with the amount of solo content that you can do, but I do think they did a really good job with adding more solo things in, such as the solo randomized dungeons, the corrupted dungeons, etc. There's a lot more to do, whether or not you're playing with people or by yourself. And I will say though that for, you know, the full Albion experience, it's probably better if you can to try to meet up with some people, find a guild, find some people to play with, just so you can experience a wide variety of content, even just outside of the solo content that the game has to offer. Another thing is that the music in this game is amazing. Amazing. Sound is something that it's one of those things that when it's good, you just appreciate it and you accept it, but when it's bad, it's really noticeable. But the music and the audio in the game is fantastic. I literally walk around my house humming the theme to Martlock all the time. It's a problem. I'm going on an adventure, Gandalf. Let's go. You know, fucking A. Music in this game pumps, dude. I'm a big fan so far of the music. But I have to say, the music in the game is great. It feels impactful. Whether or not you are in a town or you're going to get chased down by a Zerg, and then the music and the beat starts to get more intense, like, it really brings you and sucks you into the game. And I think they did a great job with the, I believe they even actually updated the music relatively recently. I could be wrong, but I think that's something I saw. So I have to say, they did a great job with the music. Huge plus to them. There's also a variety of area types based off of your comfort level with that full loot PvP. Like I mentioned in the About section, you have the blue and yellow zones where you'll be downed, in the red and black zones where you'll have full loot. And one of my biggest issues that I've had with full loot PvP games is trying to practice and get better is a fucking nightmare because you never have the opportunity to play really and figure out what you're doing, because if you lose all your stuff and then you got to go get it all again, you know? But what I like with this game is that it provides areas that you can PvP in. It provides queuable content too, like the arenas that you can PvP in, where you can practice and you can learn, and there's no penalties for dying. And so you'll feel more comfortable when you go into those full loot zones where you're like, okay, I kind of know what's going on with my character, I know some of my matchups, and you don't feel like you're just thrusted into a black zone and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing or how anything works, like a lot of other games do. So huge I love the huge props to them. I love the whole variety of area types. I think it's a really smart idea for a game like this to make people feel more comfortable. The next thing I have, minimal bugs or performance issues. And I believe the game hasn't always been this way. I think someone in my Twitch chat was letting me know that like the game Zerg v Zergs used to lag quite a bit. But let me tell you, man, I have maybe encountered 1 or 2 bugs since I started playing the game, and they were both extremely minor. And in terms of performance issues, I've had basically 0. I've done large scale Zerg v Zerg faction PvP just to kind of, I wanted to see what it was about, test the performance. Game ran perfectly fine. You know, I have had no problems or issues with it. I have had some performance issues with the client on my phone, but I don't know if that's just my phone, because my phone is a couple years old. It could just be the hardware on my phone. I don't know if it's necessarily the client, but I did have an issue with the mobile client where it would just like every now and then it would freeze for a couple of seconds, which is kind of annoying. So I don't really do anything super high octane on my phone. But at least on the PC client, 0 performance problems or issues. So they've done a great job with that, which is awesome. I also like the payment model of the game too. The fact that it's free to play and you can actually do quite a lot while it's free to play. It's not like other games that are like quote free to play, but if you don't have the the premium you're kind of inting, you can do plenty of stuff without being premium. And then if you do end up finding, enjoying the game and finding yourself wanting to pay for premium, it's obviously a big benefit to have it. So I think that overall they have a pretty healthy payment model. The MX store is all just cosmetics. You can still get good cosmetics in the game. So and also one thing I didn't mention, which I can't believe I didn't mention in the about section, is that you could actually buy premium with in-game currency. So if you are one of those people that can make a shitload of gold by playing the game, you can completely pay your premium subscription with in-game silver. So I think that's also super cool. So I find the payment model of the game very reasonable, especially in an era where it feels like everyone's just trying to take your money. It's nice that the payment for this game does feel, like I said, very reasonable. Now, although this is a PvP focused game, the next point I want to get to, it still does have a meaningful PvE content. There is still some good PvE content that you can do. Again, you're happy when you also come across those big overland mobs that you want to kill. The dungeons can offer good loot. There's a lot of PvE. And one of the things that I also love about the PvE content in the game is that it's not just brain dead easy. When you're doing those corrupted dungeons, the mobs, they have mechanics, this is not like you can just face roll them down and you're just like, all right, when's the guy gonna come invade my dungeon? Like the mobs have mechanics. The boss fights in the corrupted dungeons and these solo dungeons have mechanics that you have to do. And I personally, I'm a PvP player first and foremost. I've loved the PvE encounters in the game. It's been nice learning the mechanics. It's kind of fun when you also have to deal with those while also fighting someone else. Like, it's just such a cool dichotomy and relationship between the two things that I really like the PvE content in the game. And another thing is that you start PvPing in this game fast. I was basically doing like Roads of Avalon, Black Zone, endgame PvP, I think about 3.5 hours after I started the game, started playing. And I think that is extremely impressive, because I think for a game like this, you don't want it to be too much time between when I start the tutorial and when I actually start playing, because again, it is a PvP game first and foremost. And so I do think that the amount of time feels very reasonable to when you're doing the content you want to do. You got to grind up some silver, kill some stuff, make initial money, and then you buy your first set of gear and you can go do some either corrupted dungeons, or you can go do Black Zone stuff if you're so inclined with a group. The next thing that I want to say is that they have a mobile client. I've been just decimating my phone's battery with the mobile client. You know, I've enjoyed that. There have been times where I'm just like sitting on the couch and I'm thinking about a build, and then I just can pull it up on my phone and like look at it. I can do some crafting on my phone if I want to. Could do some chill yellow zone grinding of fame if I want to. It's not as good as black zone grinding, but still, I'm on my phone. I could just chill and do that. So I like that the mobile client is available for you to kind of check on and do things. Now, I know I've mentioned that the game is full loot quite a lot, and a lot of people are probably like, oh, Dots, I don't know about that. But I personally do feel that the full loot in this game has hit the perfect sweet spot, because I'm typically not a fan of full loot PvP games either, but I've been loving Albion because you feel very rewarded when you kill someone and you feel like, oh, good, I got like a nice loot haul here. This is pretty sweet. But you're not devastated if you go out to a black zone and die and lose your gear. Like, it's because you shouldn't be going out to a black or red zone with stuff that you're not willing to lose, right? But the amount of like the eye level of gear that you can wear and be relevant in PvP, like, it's not overly expensive. There are also viable cheap builds, and so you can, again, you will not feel completely shattered if you lose all of your stuff, you know. And also, again, there's blue and yellow zones for you to make money in and gear up until you want to make more silver so that you have some reserve in case you do die in a red zone. And again, like I said, with that loadout system and the auction house being as good as they are, re-gearing and getting back into the fight is really quick, so there's not a lot of downtime like there is in other games. So I think that they've handled the full loot PvP perfectly, and I really do enjoy it. And then the final pro that I have is the crafting system. I think crafting in the game is great. I just got into it myself recently after like being a little bit nervous at first, because a lot of these sandbox games, I feel like the crafting is usually way overly complicated, but Albion's is relatively straightforward, and there's enough depth to keep you engaged. But it's, like I said, it's very easy to get started with, and in my opinion, that's how crafting should be. Low floor so that it's easy to get into, but high ceiling so that people who really want to get into it can feel like they're involved. And I think, like I said, they hit that great sweet spot with the crafting. Now, guys, with my pros out of the way, I know I kind of gushed about the game a little bit here. I have been enjoying it. I do want to get into some of the gray and the bad area points. Now, starting with the gray, the first thing is going to be the graphics. The graphics in the game are not going to be for everybody. Personally, I don't mind them. For me, I never really care about graphics unless they're really bad, and I don't know. I don't mind the artistic style of the game. I do like it. You know, I like, you know, RuneScape 2 in this game. It's got some of those types of vibes, but I understand that the graphics won't be for everybody. So if you don't like them, that could be something that pushes you away. But again, I personally don't mind them, but that's going to, you know, vary per person. Very similar thing with the combat. The combat is not like high octane 27 cooldowns or, you know, action combat. It plays a lot more like a MOBA. And so if you're not into that, again, combat might kind of push you off a little bit. Same thing with the click to move. The game does play like a MOBA, so there is that click to move style. You could also just hold down click and it'll go the direction of your mouse. But again, if you're not into that MOBA style combat movement, Albion might not be for you. Same thing with the concept behind non-consensual PvP. Personally, I don't mind it, but I'm also a PvP player. So if you're somebody who really dislikes non-consensual PvP, I don't think you're gonna like Albion all that much, just because, again, no matter where you are, someone can attack you. Even in a yellow or blue zone, you may not lose all your stuff, but if someone's just feeling spicy, they could just attack you if they want to. So that is something to keep in mind. And then my final gray area point that, again, might not be for everyone is that there's no quests or story content, just simply due to the sandbox nature of the game. And so if you are someone that likes questing and story, I don't think Albion's gonna be a good game for you, because it does not have any of that. Personally, it's not something I really care about all too much, so that's why I kind of listed it in the gray, and I know a lot of people don't really mind it. But if you are super into quests, that's going to be something that I would say maybe pushes you away from Albion. Now, with those gray area kind of, you know, things to consider if you might not like the game, you know, points out of the way, I want to get into the bad. Now, I don't really have that many bad points about the game. A lot of them, I think, maybe a little bit like a nitpicky, but I do have some things that did come up from my first couple of weeks playing the game. My first thing is that there's no hotkey for targeting a nearest enemy. You always have to click, and let me tell you, that can be a freaking nightmare sometimes, especially when you are doing Zerg v Zerg. It is so hard to click a specific thing. Like if I'm taking a keep with my faction and I'm trying to click on the boss, it is a nightmare trying to be like, where the hell's my mouse? And then I have to click on the guy and then start attacking. I wish that you could just bind make like 2 keybinds for like just one keybind for like you press the spacebar to auto attack and it targets your nearest enemy and it auto attacks, you know? I think something like that could be really, really helpful. Just to make it the quality of life a little bit easier to actually like start dealing damage. And then if you want to change targets, you could either maybe add another hotkey to tab through targets or something, or, you know, just, I don't know. I just feel like the targeting could be a little bit better instead of always having to specifically manually click on someone. The game also does have a very short de-aggro range. Now, I have been told that this does get a little bit longer in higher level areas, but very quickly, like I was playing like a ranged build, and when I was trying to kite mobs, I noticed I could not kite them very far at all before they completely reset. So you have to like kite in Albion basically like in a circle so that you don't lose your mobs. Now, it's annoying when you're PvEing. However, it's very nice when you're PvPing and you're trying to run through a dungeon. You don't have 27,000 mobs, you know, running you down while also getting attacked by somebody, you know? So, again, it's a little annoying when you first start, but I think you will kind of get used to it. I know I personally have, and again, it's got its pros and cons because of the type of game that this is, but I just wanted to mention it here because it was a little annoying to me at first. My biggest gripe, I think, with the game is going to be my next point, and that is the grouping UI. I think overall the grouping UI is pretty good, but you are missing some really key information, and I don't know if I'm just messing up here and I'm missing something, but I don't think I am. I inspected and looked around the UI. You can't really see where people in your group are. You can't just like hover your mouse over somebody and it says like, okay, they're over here, you know? Or if you open up your map and you see like one of the, you know, little group dots running towards you, you can't like hover your mouse over that person and see who they are. You know, I just feel like the group UI in general could show me some more information. It could just use some more improvements. But the biggest thing I want to be able to see first and foremost is where are the people in my group? That is the only thing I want to see. You know, and I believe that sometimes you can't actually see the people on the map unless you specifically are in that zone as well. Like the grouping UI just definitely needs some improvement and needs to show better location information as well as like where specific people are. But that's like my biggest gripe with the game. And again, more of just a UI thing. The next thing that I have is that the game only has 1 server. Now, the game, because it only has 1 server, it can definitely cause ping issues if you are far away from it. It's on the East Coast, I believe, and so if you're playing in Europe or if you are, you know, you live more in the East, trying to connect to Albion servers can cause you to have some big ping problems. I actually believe that EU ping isn't as bad as something like if you're like over it, like way more in the East, but again, something to just consider. Thankfully, I'm East Coast, so I don't have any ping problems, but I did just want to mention here because it definitely is something that is going to affect people depending on where you live. The next point that I have, I hope I'm not wrong on, but I've been trying to do research, and I just wanted to discuss this here. So the player islands do feel a little bit useless at the moment. I think they're great in concept, but based off from what I could tell, the silver per hour that you would make on your house, because like I said, the houses, the islands are functional. They're not really cosmetic. So, you primarily can use them as a way to generate money. And the problem is that I believe that they've been nerfed, and so they're worse silver per hour than just crafting in a town and just doing stuff in cities. And like I said, I think I could be wrong, but based off what my Twitch chat has told me and my own research, they don't seem as worth using now as they used to be. But this could either be fixed with a balance patch, or what they could do is just add in some cosmetic things so that in my house, if I don't want to make it functional and just want to make it a cosmetic type of thing, I could do that, you know. I don't know if there's target dummies in the game. You could add something like that to that too. I just feel like making the islands like a little bit more similar to maybe like an old school RuneScape kind of housing would be really fun for the game. It would give people some non-combat stuff to actually do that could be really enjoyable. But to me right now, I've been a little bit underwhelmed by the islands so far. But again, like I said, a balance patch could even just fix that up too in terms of the silver per hour, or I might just be mistaken. Then the final thing I want to mention too kind of has to do with you know, kind of silver and loot, is that I feel like the random dungeon loot could just be like the random like solo generated dungeons that you walk across. I feel like could be a little bit better. I know with the latest patch that they nerfed those types of dungeons a little bit and buffed the overland, but I do think that some of the loot that comes out of those solo random dungeons could be a little bit improved. I know, like, even like I'm looking through Reddit and just, I see people asking about that, and you see so many people that are like, the dungeons aren't worth it, just stick to overland. And you know, I wish that they were just maybe increased and buffed a little bit, just to kind of make them still worth people like actually going across and doing. Again, I might be a little mistaken on this point, but from my research, I don't think I am. So would like to see that be, you know, just improved a little bit, so that people feel more like, oh, you know, I just stumbled across this random dungeon, let me go do it, you know, and, you know, kind of feel a little bit more incentivized to actually walk in, as opposed to just sticking up top on the overland. Like, honestly, guys, of all the MMOs I've tested over the last year or so, since I've been starting to do variety content, I think Albion is one of the first, outside of my original main game, that I could legitimately see myself playing long term. You know, especially like a lot of my cons that I have here are like just kind of like personal, like, you know, you could improve this, you could change that, but there's nothing that's like groundbreakingly like, oh my god, this is just so terrible, you know? Like, I haven't come across that yet. The game is incredibly fun. There's a lot to do solo or with a group, and it's one of the very few PvP first MMOs that isn't just plain bad, because most of them are. The game is actually really, really fun. Like I said, I have just so much good to say about the game, and I think if you've been looking for a new MMO to try, and if you're a fan of PvP, I highly recommend checking out Albion. It has been very fun experience for me so far. The game is also growing in popularity, seems to be improving a ton in each update, and I definitely think this game is worth playing in 2022. Now, guys, have you played Albion? Have you tried Albion? Do you still currently play it? Let me know what you think about the game in that comment section below. And if you guys did like this video, I would appreciate if you smacked a like on it. It really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. And if you guys do want to see more videos like this, more is it worth playing videos for MMOs in 2022, as well as first impressions and some ESO content, because that was my original main game that I was playing, feel free to hit that sub button as well as the bell to keep those notifications on. So appreciate you all stopping by. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all next time.